Well, we're so thankful that you guys made time this evening to come over. We've looked forward to, since moving into this house, we've been living here about a month, just gathering a group and having the opportunity to share a little bit about the ministry DadAwesome. So tonight, most of the gatherings that we host would be a lot less of me speaking, and tonight will be a little bit more just because it's fun to get a chance to share. For the first time ever since we moved here to Flagler Beach, we've just never kind of gathered a group of friends, family, and shared a little bit about what led us to move here and what's going on with the ministry DadAwesome. So there's been little side conversations, but just a chance to kind of pull together, give thanks, share a little bit, and then pray together. So, and Aaron, thank you for bringing the acoustic, and Aaron's going to lead us in a couple songs that we'll sing together in a little bit, so appreciate you. And feel free, if you want that pie, to sneak and grab some. Can I put you on the spot, Michelle, to pray over our time together? Yeah.
Heavenly Father, we're just so grateful. Thank you for the rain, and thank you for this space. And we just honor you today, and we're just so grateful for what you have done over the past few years in bringing us here, and what you've done in the ministry, and just the opportunity to share the journey. And we just thank you for all these friends that have come to join us tonight. We just pray Holy Spirit would come and guide this time and flood this with your presence. And we just pray this in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. One thing about our family, maybe you noticed the RV kind of tucked behind the palm tree over here. Like one goal of ours is to always give thanks. So anytime we move the RV, we try to write a remembrance list of look what God has done. And we actually, about every other year, so it's been about 2 years since we hosted one of these types of gatherings, to say, look what we've had the joy to be a part of as far as the ministry. And like I said, it's the first one we've hosted down here ever. 2 weeks ago, we hosted one in St. Paul, Minnesota. And then there'll be another one in the other part of the metro up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And then we have one in Dallas coming up. So there's 4 of them this year, of gathering friends, family, to share and to say, look what God has done. So that's kind of the hope for tonight. The main hope is that you leave being like, wow, that's God clearly answered some prayers and has called this family to a mission. So let's, I'll take on a little bit of a tour using the screen and following my notes. So hopefully this doesn't confuse anyone. But there's questions. You guys have heard this before. Questions can really lead to deep impact. People who ask great questions would probably be people that most of us would say, man, I like hanging out with that person. They ask great questions. I really appreciate when someone asks a question that leaves me lingering, leaves me thinking and praying like, wow, I want to think on that more. And 6.5 years ago, I was in Arizona. At the time, I had Michelle and I had a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old daughter. So just 2 girls at the time. We have 4 girls now. And I was asked the question, this question on the screen. So my cousin said, how do you stay intentional as a dad? He observed me as a young dad. He observed intentionality. And I actually pondered and thought about that question into the evening and the next morning when I woke up. I was just thinking about that question because for me, intentionality would mean that I'm reading books about that topic. Intentionality would mean that I have mentors or coaches around that subject matter. Intentionality would mean that I've maybe been a part of a small group, a gathering to talk about and grow together. Maybe I've taken an online course on that subject. Maybe I've listened to a podcast on that topic. I've gone to a conference perhaps. Maybe I've set some goals, some concrete goals in that area. Or I have some form of accountability in that area. Usually the areas of intentionality in my life at least have some of those things. Maybe somebody would nod along. I had 0 in any of those categories in the dad life at that point. As a young dad with a 5-year-old, or with a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, I had not any of those bullet points I just rattled through. The answer was a 0. But yet I was loving the role of being a dad. So he observed I liked being a dad and called it intentionality. And I continued to ponder that question. And the next morning, woke up early and filled an Evernote file with ideas on how I could become more intentional as a dad. It's actually impossible to fill an Evernote file. But I put down a lot of notes. And the goal was this. The goal was really simply, what would it look like to help dads be awesome dads? Really simple goal. I spent the flight home brainstorming domain names to buy, because anytime you have a good idea, you have to follow it up with buying the website domain name, right? That's usually, and this is really the simple goal was, if the world was filled with dads who were awesome dads, the ripple effect of every dad on this street, in Flagler Beach, in Palm Coast, in Northeast Florida, in the nation, if every dad was an awesome dad, the ripple effect out would be, I mean, basically all of the ills, all of the evils in the world would evaporate if dads were awesome dads, right? So that's the big goal. The trick about a goal like that is there is quite a bit of opposition to a goal like dads being awesome dads. So I'm not going to spend a long time on these, but just these are some of the real oppositions to the world being filled with dads who are awesome dads. Dads carry hurt, pain, and baggage from their experience with their own dad. I can say that's true of me. I didn't speak with my dad at all for the first 5 months of my freshman year of college. No speaking back and forth because of a decision I made not to play basketball in college. It brought deep hurt. He wanted me to play ball. I chose not to, and there was conditional love, and that plays its way forward. When you have and my dad is an amazing dad. Yet there's hurt that I carry forward. So as a young dad, that's one example of, man, a lot of dads carry some hurt and baggage forward. Another example would be the overwhelming challenges. Like every phase of fatherhood, you're a rookie again. Mindy, Aaron, would you guys agree? Every phase, like, especially when it's your first child. Now, it still feels like there's new challenges though, every personality type, right? So the overwhelming challenges of fatherhood keep dads from being awesome dads. Mounting career pressure. There's real financial provision pressure that dads face. The fourth one I listed was an increase in isolation. So there's all kinds of stats around the level of isolation, the number of close friends that specifically men have, and it's less today than it was 10 years ago, 40 years ago, 100 years ago. Cultural opposition to the biblical family and biblical fatherhood. There's real opposition to following the Bible when it comes to fatherhood. There's a global epidemic of fatherlessness that we'll talk about a little bit later. The seventh one is just emerging challenges with smartphones, screens, social media, artificial intelligence. It's just a new world to raise kids in. The eighth one is a lack of intentional fatherhood resources being provided by local churches. So we had a chance to travel the country for 550 nights in that RV, and we scouted and we looked for what is the local church doing in all areas of the country. In 38 states we hit, and the local churches are not doing much in the area of intentional fatherhood because of the complexities and because it's a very difficult space to step into, and it's a controversial space depending on where you're at and the approach to fatherhood, and there's not much being offered. The ninth one is just a lack of a fatherhood scorecard. So I think men and women love a scorecard, but especially men want to know, am I winning or am I losing? And the dad life is filled with, it's murky. Is this month, this year, a win or a loss on the dad scorecard? There's really no scorecard. And then the 10th kind of challenge, the problem that I think we're facing to try to experience and live in a world full of awesome dads is parenting. The dad life is pretty full of guilt and shame from dads feeling like a failure. That if you knew what I know happened in the car yesterday, if you knew what I did, like having that RV wrapped in DadAwesome would have been problematic because we're in RV parks and people see the real, like this is a problem. You walked out of this RV called, just at, what's the Beverly Beach, what's the next RV park that we stayed at? Treasure. Yeah, there's things that happen at that RV park that I was not an awesome dad. So I think there's real like guilt and shame, and there's a funny side to that, but there's also like a lot of dads are carrying, could be hidden stuff going on that people don't know about, addictions, vices, things that like, hey, if you knew what the real me, you would know that I'm a horrible dad. And that shame keeps, I think, a lot of dads from helping other dads in the journey and being like, hey, I want to join and be in brotherhood. So those are the 10 areas that I call the problem with us living in a world full of awesome dads. I started an experiment 6.5 years ago after filling that Evernote file with ideas around helping the dads. And at this point, I was a pastor. I was a business guy turned pastor. Pastor turned nonprofit leader who's leading a fatherhood ministry. But as a pastor, I was dedicating babies, large church, a couple thousand people. I was doing baby dedications, and I'd look right in the eye of these dads, praying for them. And I knew that our church of thousands of people, was offering nothing to those dads to help them be an awesome dad. So I started a 10-week experiment. My girls love these pictures because they're like, Dad, you look really young. This is, again, 6.5 years ago. And that experiment led to, I had nothing else to say after 10 short episodes. And it converted into creating resources by me just going out and trying to find wisdom from other dads. And it led to now, there's been I recorded the 338th podcast this morning. So every week for 6.5 years, I've released an episode of the DadAwesome podcast. And I've learned a lot along the way. It's a wild, the journey of just staying with, like just sticking with it, has brought friendships, partnerships, way beyond what I could have hoped for. And it was way harder than I could have thought to stick with a thing like podcasting for 6.5 years. But I've told Michelle, as soon as it's not helpful for our family, we'll stop. Michelle will tell you that 90% of the learnings from the DadAwesome podcast, I have actually, would you say 90% or 80%? What do you think? Have I not implemented?
I mean, we could say
80. But when you do that many podcasts, if you implement 20%, is it a net positive for the family is the main goal. If it's not a net positive, then we stop. We stop the ministry. DadAwesome, we stop the podcast. And so far, it's been a positive for our family. We created some small group curriculum based on these 4 simple principles. And then I took some of you guys, you're going to recognize some of these faces. So I took a group, there's Aaron's in there. I took a group through this 4-part framework here in Flagler Beach. Just other examples of resources. We hosted meetups all around the country of dads. Some of these guys are Palm Coast dads here in this picture. But what we found was shortly after this journey started, about a year into this journey of resourcing and trying to create resources to help dads be awesome dads. And real simply, my quick summary of what does that look like to be an awesome dad. Mark 1 verse 11 says, is Jesus getting baptized and God splitting the heavens open and praying over him. And he says, "This is my son whom I love. In you I am well pleased." And the Bible makes it clear that we get to be dads. All of us as sons of God get to experience that promise and that identity. So the same thing that God spoke over Jesus, we get to experience and be dads who are loved sons of God, and he's pleased by us regardless of what we've done. So we don't have to earn any love. I haven't earned any more love from God because I've done 338 podcast episodes on fatherhood. The vision though is dads that take a journey to the waterfall of God's love. So just picture it like the most beautiful waterfall you've ever seen. It talks in the Bible about God lavishing his love on us. If dads will go experience the love of God, be a son first is what we say at DadAwesome. Be a son first, experience his love, and then just have the hands of your kids. So if Jordan brings along his boys, has his boys' hands in each, if he's under the waterfall, his kids get wet. So that's the simplest version of being DadAwesome, is just go experience the love of God and bring your kids with you. And having a relationship where your kids want to be with you and you want to be with God, it's just, that is the ripple effect of awesome dads. So it's a little more specific than just being what you would think of as an awesome dad. Let me go forward to, so we realized that resourcing wasn't enough. Men and dads just won't show up to small groups. Half of the guys that I knew at the church we were serving in wouldn't show up to a small group to talk about fatherhood, but they would say yes to wearing spandex. So what men want is a quantifiable challenge. They want to do hard things. So we started this as a 100-mile bike ride. And the first year we had 27 dads, and we were so pumped. We raised $17,000 for the fatherless. So our mission was bike 100 miles with us. Let's raise money for these partners, not for DadAwesome, for these partners that directly serve the fatherless. And that action, so that's action. Resourcing is what I talked about with, it's awareness. We're making the podcast is just broad awareness. The action though, men sweating together. Men, everything we do is as a team, everything we do is hard, and everything we do requires a journey when it comes to action. So these are some guys at the finish line of a church. These are guys up in Jacksonville doing the Spartan race 2 years ago. This is Sean. So Sean had a dad who left him, and he had no relationship with his dad. His dad tried to get in touch with him. He said, no go, not going to get in touch with you. He had a son, and Sean did the bike ride with us 3 years in a row. And by doing Fathers for the Fatherless and making some friends and praying for kids that don't have dads, he realized my son hasn't met his grandpa yet. And so he will say, and he's shared this a couple years ago at a vision night we did, that it's because of the bike ride and because of the brotherhood and because of the journey of what God did in his heart that he flew to the Northeast from Minnesota and introduced his little guy to his dad and was reestablished relationship with his dad because of, again, what happened by doing a hard thing, biking 100 miles. We do triathlons now as well, and actually the guy who's pretty ripped on the left side of that photo, it was his passion to do triathlons, and he asked me, can we take Fathers for the Fatherless into triathlons? And he personally has mobilized about 50 men, and those guys have raised well over $50,000 for our partners, just because he had the idea of moving it into a triathlon. This is our triathlon team. This is just an example of we always ride in groups, and we always, like the Peloton effect of cycling makes the journey easier because of the wind resistance. And what happens in conversations when you ride, and we actually don't ride like 4 wide very often, so it's a bad picture, I guess. Usually we ride 2 wide. But the conversation's 2 wide in spandex. We look forward. You're looking forward. It's funny. I showed up to the first few rides in my basketball gear. And then I showed up in basketball gear a couple more times. And then when you show me your friends, I'll show you your future. I have now worn spandex for basically 18 bike rides and a lot of training. And now I'm hopefully going to burn it soon and never do it again. This is Arizona. This is our Oceanside, California. That's in the Front Range of Colorado. That's in Minnesota, coming into the finish line. And then this was Landon. There you are. This is our team up in Jacksonville just 5 months ago. And then I know I'm kind of rattling through some of this, but we also do challenges. This was the Murph Challenge 2 years ago, where you use the weight of your kids. So instead of wearing a weight vest, we use the weight of our kids. And this was a fully remote challenge. So it was when a lot of things were shut down. We trained separately, but we used just group messaging to encourage each other. And we all did the Murph separate all around the country. We didn't do this one to raise money. We did this one to kind of just be dads who are strong. We believe that dads who are strong can bring strength to their families and can raise strong families. So we do challenges as well. Just a couple other quick things that DadAwesome has had the chance to be a part of is the gathering on the left was a year and a half ago in Colorado, Fort Collins. Some of you might recognize Mark Batterson's an author that's decided, so he's in the middle with the baseball cap on. He has said, I want to help DadAwesome reach more dads. And by doing so, what we decided is let's gather leaders of Fatherhood Ministries. So I'll chat about the group on the right in a few moments, but the hope is just let's get around others who lead Fatherhood Ministries. And the RV trip has really allowed us to develop deep friendships with leaders all over the country. And I'll come back to what happened just 3 weeks ago. That's the group on the right was 3 weeks ago in Washington, D.C. And then this is an example of coaching. We started the DadAwesome Accelerator 3 months ago, where 10 guys at a time, we're doing a 6-week journey where we're giving tactical challenges every single week, reading assignments, they're sharing stories, and I'm bringing kind of a 6-week curriculum. And it's one of the favorite things I've been a part of. So we've only done one cohort so far, but more to come on that. Okay, so that's a flyover of where we've been. Action events and resourcing. This is where it started. Was the logo on the left was our logo. And actually I have a few of you, we've got like 6 or 8 old t-shirts and some old socks on your way out if there's a size that fits you, or grab a pair of socks. I'm trying to get rid of the old stuff, the old logo. And that's the old logo though. That's my daughter's when we started DadAwesome, about 6 years ago. It was a summer photo. And then that's the crew now last summer. So we added a couple girls. So the first form of multiplication is the Zog family. We added a couple girls. This is, there's the crew, present day. So the multiplication though, the RV was a tool for us to multiply the vision. I was invited to host these events around the country, and to be a dad who flies away from his little girls to go do fatherhood ministry just didn't really that didn't work for our family. So we had the opportunity to homeschool and hit the road. And what started as about a 3 to 4 month adventure turned into a 2.5-year adventure. We'd never heard of Flagler Beach, had never spent any time in this area, and we discovered this because of the adventure of multiplying and seeing what God would do to multiply the vision and impact. I know it's a lot on the screen right there, but it's real briefly, I mentioned the podcasts. We went from raising $17,000 the first year for our partners to we're closing in on $1 million raised for our partners. And it's going to happen. It might happen in Dallas. So I'm trying to recruit some of you guys to come to Dallas with me in October to kind of push us over the finish line before 2025 to get over $1 million raised. And that's all out the door for our partners. We're so grateful. And then partnerships has been the unexpected. I didn't realize when I started this, a lot of people would summarize and say, well, what does Jeff do? He does a podcast and he does bike rides. And truly, those have been the main 2 initiatives for the past 6 years, has been these action events, raising money for the fatherless, and a podcast every single week. But what's happened is, I mentioned the DadAwesome Summit, the partners, the other people we've met, the families we've met, that's been one of the most rich, there's amazing stories that I'll share a few more in a moment, but one of the most rich things about this journey has been the partnerships. We have an advisory team, and this team will be a legal board this year. They'll convert into for our 501c3 nonprofit, but this is a team that, obviously can't even read what it says there. They're all over the country, and they're people that I deeply respect that are helping guide us forward. And again, the goal is helping dads be awesome dads. The main initiatives have been the podcast and the bike rides. I found myself just a month ago really tired after leading this mission and being kind of a solopreneur, only staff member. And I headed to Washington, D.C., super tired, and praying for, God, how do these pieces fit together? I've seen impact in different forms, what we've had a chance to do. How do they fit together? And God answered that prayer and showed me just about a month ago some clarity that I'm excited to share with you guys. I've been talking long enough, though, that I asked Aaron, could you interrupt me and take us into a song? And I've got the lyrics. Yeah, exactly, cliffhanger. So if you need a piece of pie, no pressure to sing, but some of us love to sing. So the words will be on the screen. I think gratitude is the first one. Is that all right? Yeah, let's do it.
All my words fall short. I've got nothing left. With my arms stretched wide, I could sing these songs as I often do. Every song must end as you never do. So I throw up my hands, praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, but I'm nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah. I've got one response, I've got just one move. With my arms stretched wide, I live and worship you. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah. is shy of me, lift up your song. 'Cause you got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. So come on, my song, don't you get shy of me, lift up your song. 'Cause you got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. Oh, come on, my song, don't you get shy of me, lift up your song. 'Cause you got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. So I throw up my hands, praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. I know it's not much, I'm nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah.
Thanks, brother. Okay, so cliffhanger resumed. I, at this point, headed to Washington, D.C. on the 10th of June, feeling tired. The main things that I have had the privilege to lead, I've already walked you through. These action events, this podcast, this curriculum for small groups. I didn't mention for 2 years I sent a text message every day to dads, just a text of encouragement and a nudge. The DadAwesome Summits, gatherings of fatherhood ministry leaders, the DadAwesome Accelerator, this coaching cohort, and groups through that kind of 4-part framework, and I guess a couple other initiatives during COVID, but we all have forgotten what happened during that year. So I go to Washington, D.C., kind of disappointed because I invited about 50 leaders. I've met and have connected with about 50 leaders of Fatherhood Ministries, and 11 showed up, me plus 10 others. And I felt intimidated because I knew from a kind of pre-assessment of the group arriving that the collective between all of us is 158 years of intentional fatherhood, full-time fatherhood ministry. 158 years. I carry 3.5 years of full-time fatherhood ministry, and I was in charge of the group. I was the youngest leader there, and I was going in a little intimidated. Actually, our second oldest, Ruthie, she sent me a video message praying for me to not be scared. And I went a day early, which was helpful. I put the girls on a flight to Minnesota, and I flew up by myself to DC, had a day of kind of prayer and just praying, God, like I'm looking for breakthrough, and would you guide this time? I want it to be valuable for these leaders. And we met in this building called the Capitol Turnaround. And I actually don't know the exact year in the 1800s this was built, but it's a building, a full city block in Washington, D.C., designed at the end of the rail line for these cars. Before they were even powered, they were towed by horses, and this building was designed to turn around trolley cars. And part of the reason that it was low attendance is I picked Father's Day week, leaders of Fatherhood Ministries on the week of Father's Day. Maybe wasn't the best choice. We said maybe we'll pick that date once a decade. Once a decade we'll go back to Father's. But it was Father's Day week in the nation's capital, in a place called the Capitol Turnaround, and we prayed through this verse. It's the last verse of the Old Testament. And he will turn the hearts of fathers to their children and the hearts of children to their fathers. And there was a moment during this meeting, in every single session with these leaders, I mean, we were so grateful. The room was like everyone leaned in with their whole hearts. For about 42 hours we were together. And we gathered for like 6 sessions. And one of the leaders in the room from Spokane, Washington, I'd never met him. He was a reference for another leader. He knows the family who started Father's Day. So Father's Day was started in the 1920s by a few small churches in Spokane, Washington. It took 50 years to get the attention of the President of the United States to make it a national holiday. In the 70s or 80s, it started as a national holiday. And he knows the families who stuck with it for 50 years because of a vision for churches celebrating fathers. And we're reading this verse about the turning of hearts. And the second part of this verse is, or else I will strike the land with a curse. Like it's this whoa, there's something super powerful about the hearts of fathers turning to their children, the hearts of children turning to their fathers. So we started, and I, again, filled up another Evernote file on my flight home from Washington, D.C. with fresh vision for praying for a fatherhood turnaround. So this really has captured my heart, but also the team out there around wanting that group of ministries and the 50 that weren't able to be there. We use the metaphor of rowing together and this idea of boys in the boat. Anyone seen the movie or read the book? This Olympic team, Washington State, going to Berlin Olympics. So Summer Olympics start in 2 weeks? Well, the rowing team, the way a rowing team works together compared to rowing solo. I'm praying, and that's one of the things we're praying for, but together we care deeply about, can we work together to see a turning, a fatherhood turnaround. So I'm going to elaborate on these briefly, and then I'll go into what DadAwesome is up to next. So the prayer is for fathers to turn to their children, a turning of hearts from children to their fathers. That includes all of us have a dad. So that heart turn can be for a 42-year-old to turn their hearts towards healing and forgiveness to their own dad, right? A turning in identity from thinking like an orphan to thinking like a son. And there's a lot of depth to that statement, but this idea of sons have an inheritance and sons have unconditional love, orphans work for it, and we're praying for that turning. A turning from isolation, we talked about earlier, to brotherhood. A turning from dads with dull and empty eyes of overwhelm to dads having eyes filled with wonder and amazement, shiny eyes of, can you believe I get to be a dad? A turning from grumbling through the dad life, grumbling through these young fatherhood years, to being massively grateful for this treasured role of being a dad. A turning from dads stuck in sin, bondage, addiction, to dads being set free. A turning from short-sighted, frustrated fatherhood to a visionary, generational mindset to fatherhood. So these are, again, all the big prayers. A turning from dads settling for being out of shape with a dad bod to dads being strong and healthy and active, right? I mean, that's a prayer, and it's not necessarily the norm if you look at national statistics. Fatherhood Ministries turning from serving individually with a siloed approach to being allies that cheer for each other and row together towards this movement. Father's Day turning from being the lowest attended Sunday of the year. Do you guys know that? Father's Day is the lowest attended Sunday of the year. It's because statistically, when the dad has a choice to go to church or to not go to church, they choose to stay home on Father's Day. So the prayer is a turning to Father's Day being the greatest Sunday of the year. A turning from churches offering nothing for fatherhood ministry, nothing for dads, to churches being famous for all the ways they resource dads. Like the soccer field, new dad that you meet, you're like, it doesn't matter what you think about Jesus. This church is going to help you in your journey of being an intentional dad. And then the last two is a turnaround, praying for a turnaround, a turning from 24.7 million children living absent of their biological father. So that's a third in the United States, to God's plan for no more fatherlessness. By the way, the United States is dead last of 130 developed nations. We're dead last for the worst statistics around fatherlessness. So, the wealthiest nation, a Christian nation, and we're the worst at having kids being raised without a dad at home. And then turning, the last one, and there's a lot. There's 14 of these prayers. But I'm praying them, and I wanted to share them with you guys. Dads turning from passively waiting to be active. Passively waiting. So the metaphor is the Teddy Roosevelt, the man in the arena, like the guys that are in the grandstand pointing out, being a critic, right? And I meant to put the quote in here, but you guys can look it up later. Versus dads on the playing field, in the game, and I say dads being activated to lead with wonder. So a turning from passivity to activation. Dads leading in this area with wonder. So this is the I'm stoked up, I'm praying for these 14 areas of a turnaround. Well, what does that mean? What does action look like in the next 6.5 years? Because there's 6.5 years in hindsight of saying, well, I learned a lot, I met a lot of amazing people, we got to see some incredible testimonies of what God did. What is the next phase look like? Fun story. I just found that quote that I was looking for. It's not there, but it's here. So as we head into the next song, we're going to sing one more song before I share the solution, what we're going after as a ministry. There's not much more to be talking tonight. Let me read this quote though as we head into this next song, and it's a good one. It's a good one. So Teddy Roosevelt on a tour through Europe challenged the crowd with this message. He said, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly." So that's the challenge, and that's the prayer, is that dads will live with their whole hearts and be a part of the solution. So let's sing this song together, and then I'll share the solution after that.
You soften my heart, break me apart. I need you to open my eyes, see that you're shaping my life. All I am, I surrender. Give me faith to trust what you say, that you're good and your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. I need you to soften my heart, break me apart. I need you to pierce through the dark and cleanse every part of me. All I am, I surrender. Give me faith to trust what you say, that you're good and your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life, my life. I may be weak, but your spirit is strong in me. My flesh may fail, but my God, you never will. I may be weak, but your spirit is strong in me. My flesh may fail, but my God, you never will. Give me faith, trust what you say, that you're good, your love is great. Your spirit strong in me, my flesh may fail. My God, you never will. I may be weak, but your spirit strong in me, my flesh may fail. My God, you never will.
God, thank you that that's true. God, that we all walk and carry weakness. God, we can't do this. We can't be dads. We can't follow your purposes, your plan without your strength. So we just claim that promise that you are strong in us and you care and you love beyond what we can understand. So we ask that you guide the rest of this time, and thank you for that promise of your strength. In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks, Deed. Okay, so this is fresh off the printer, and it is kind of the, if you pass those around, it's kind of the the alignment that I've been just hoping and praying for. Is there's pieces that we've had a chance to be a part of, but how do the pieces work together? And this was not designed by a graphic designer. So this is yours truly using Canva, and this is how it came out. There's a lot. If in doubt, put more stuff on the page, right? A friend of mine, a coach, says the ruthless elimination of content, and I said, well, I failed on this one. Okay, so here's the prayer, though, is that this is it's wet cement still, but it's a way for me to share with you what I see DadAwesome stepping into in really exciting ways in the next chapter. And the next chapter is like now, like we're stepping into with this alignment of the game plan. So DadAwesome helps with awareness is the top level. So we got a funnel here. Awareness is the podcast, daily encouragement. This would be from Instagram Reels to daily text messages to email, other nudge content to help dads. But this is all real. Take it or leave it. It's there for you. We have no idea how much transformation comes from. Sometimes there's the leap, and I'll share a couple stories of guys leaping from podcast listener to, wow, you're leading. I'll wait and share it when we get to activation, though. And then awareness, though, it's just like this. We're committed. I'm the golden retriever. I'm sticking with the podcast. I've heard enough testimony stories. I'm sticking with it. But it has to lead to a next step. Awareness. We're in a series right now with the DadAwesome podcast that being DadAwesome is not. It can never stay for yourself. So if it was just for Aaron, for him and his daughter, you're not being DadAwesome if it's just for you and your daughter. We believe you have to move beyond taking in content and putting it into practice in your own homes. If DadAwesome in the next 10 years reaches 10,000 dads and it stops there, mission failure. Being DadAwesome has to include the next step of activation. So let's move towards that. So awareness is learning, being inspired. Action is what we shared with you, and we've done now 29 events across the country. 1,100 men have been a part of these action events. They're bike rides, they're triathlons, there's obstacle course races, they're challenges and adventures. The only adventure to date is our Chattanooga Half Ironman team was an adventure because we were away at a cabin for 4 days, 3 nights together, and it turned it from an event to an adventure because we journeyed together. And it was really hard, which a lot of our day events are hard too, but that one was brutal. Action has to lead somewhere. So awareness leads to action. Action, all of our events, all of our challenges, all of our adventures are as a team. So you have brotherhood. You have a sampling of brotherhood when it comes to action. Acceleration is where I think the life change happens. It really happens through acceleration. And I have been trying to provide DadAwesome curriculum to be the acceleration piece. And what I mean by acceleration is discipleship happens here. identity, experiencing our identity as sons of God happens in acceleration. Really, transformation happens when you move past a one-time event once a year and you train for it and do the event and raise money for a great cause. When you move into acceleration, which is in the living room. So I've been gathering with guys here in this living room once a month. That's an example of like we're moving towards what I call the acceleration phase. But DadAwesome is not the end-all stop. We haven't solved this. And that's what I realized in Washington, D.C., is that team of leaders said, they asked me, would you step in and lead more than a once-a-year gathering? Would you lead a collective of resources that row together that I talked about? So the prayer is, instead of me meeting with a church in town, which I've, since being here, I can't help myself. I meet some people, I say, can I meet with one of your pastors? And I'll ask them, what are you doing for Fatherhood Ministry? And I'll start to share, what are we up to? And I kind of get some blank stares because every church is different. And every church has different needs. And DadAwesome does not have a solution for every church. But between the 50 partner ministries, there are solutions for every church. And in DC, I realized that some of those leaders are hiring church relations people to specifically promote one resource. And the power of a collective, of an approach where all of these action events. So let's use the Dallas Spartan event for an example. I keep looking at Landon and Jordan because I'm trying to get them to come with me to in October to do the Spartan in Dallas. Is Aaron coming with us? Oh, it's your birthday. Yes, Aaron. Jordan's not invited because it's pretty. Yeah, it's birthday weekend. It's the wrong weekend. Shoot, I forgot about that. If I go into Dallas and invite our connections, the DadAwesome audience in Dallas to do a Spartan, I have 29 emails on my email list in Dallas. If the collective promotes the event and says, we're going to do an action event in Dallas, there could be 10, 20,000 emails on that list to recruit. And these other ministries are not doing action level events. This is what really has set DadAwesome apart, is these 1,100 men who have done a action level spandex wearing event. And because it activates guys that usually wouldn't join, again, a church small group, and then we use direct recruiting to get them down into one of our partner ministries. Okay, let me move forward. I'm getting stuck on acceleration. So awareness leads to action, action to acceleration. Activation is that last step. And this is what we had a sampling of with our cohort that we did, the DadAwesome Accelerator, is can we move guys from experiencing transformation? Can we move dads into going back up the funnel and leading and helping others? So right now we're trying with the podcast to move guys to, I call it DadAwesome +3. Just find 3 other dads and start talking about this journey together. Don't do the journey alone. Activation, though, looks like taking that burning passion that's in my heart and in the leaders of all these different ministries. How is that transferred into men who have experienced more of God? They've experienced more brotherhood, more healing, more freedom, and them actually being activated to go lead others. This is the great multiplier. If you recruit and touch 10,000 dads, but it stops there, there's no chance at that number, 24.7 million fatherless kids. The groundswell of impact comes from men experiencing the DadAwesome way and then going and recruiting others in and being the leader that helps see other guys transformed. So the aha that we had was, let's row as a team, let's work together, and let's put our focus where I think DadAwesome is best suited for awareness, action, and activation. And at the acceleration level, it's all about the partners. It's all about partnerships, and it's all about collaboration. So that was the big aha coming home, is the need for, and the kind of unique positioning that we have 6.5 years into this podcast. A lot of leaders of ministries don't know each other. And I've just had the excuse and privilege to get to know these leaders and to now pull them together. The reason I put a compass on the lower right-hand side of this is I have been praying, and this, you guys might think this is weird. I've been praying for the Compass Hotel ever since they started construction of that hotel. That it would be a equipping center, a base, a place where 20 at a time, leaders from across the country of Fatherhood Ministries will fly in to connect, be equipped, go home, more synced up on mission together. That dads that experience this transformation will come, fly in, stay there, and return home ready to lead others. That our leaders for all those action events, our leaders from all over the country will come here, be equipped each year, sent back to recruit, deployed as leaders. That the Compass Hotel, that turning of hearts, there's something like, I think, powerful about the idea of if we could find true north together in a spot that is actually like strategic location of us being in the First Coast, like the spot where the very first settlers from Europe came for religious freedom, we're at this spot where I think in a really special way we can create playful experiences through our partners who own restaurants, own businesses, from surfing together to mountain biking together to fishing together to learning, to being inspired together. I think that's going to be a place where some really special things happen. So that's why I'm praying for it. And I'm recruiting you guys to pray with me into the Compass. Who knows? And I don't know when it's going to open, but maybe we'll be one of the first groups to book 20 rooms. So this is at a high level. I guess I took it into less of a high level. I talked into it pretty deep. Does that make sense? Any questions on this idea of activating dads to lead with wonder with a strategic alignment of what we do? Awareness, action, activation. Is that confusing or does it make sense? Does it resonate?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, I think, since I met you, I'll just be candid.
Yeah.
I think, I've heard you talk about like the vision for where you want to go, and I think that this is like the most distilled version that I've heard thus far. It makes a lot more sense, like where you're, it's funny, a few months ago you said something to me and I was like, I'm wondering what the next step is for Jeff, because I felt like it wasn't stagnation necessarily, but there was like a uncertainty of what the next thing was, and it's really nice to see that it seems to have come to full circle for you guys, and this makes sense to me. So
Thanks for that.
Good job.
Yeah, thanks for that encouragement. Any other thoughts or questions? I'll add something while you guys are thinking about questions. So when I wrote mission exposure in the upper right, when we show up at some of these events, we're the largest team. We show up to a triathlon that happened with 30 guys, and the triathlon's 600, but we're the biggest team that shows up. And we have been for 6 years wearing the brand Fathers for the Fatherless. We've been front and center with our mission is helping the fatherless. And we're about to wrap up our 6th year and about to celebrate. We're praying into that goal of crossing $1 million raised for our partners. But where our plan right now is in the next chapter to sync our mission so that mission exposure around all these teams out at all these events will be under the DadAwesome brand, with the mission still very much, we care deeply about the fatherless, but our next chapter is going to be focusing on a little bit upstream. So our first chapter was focused on the fatherless, raising for partners. Our next chapter is going to be focused on intentional fatherhood, building this wave, again, when the world is filled with dads who are on fire for this mission, there won't be, with enough dads, there actually won't be kids that are fatherless. And we don't know exactly what that looks like. There probably will still be opportunities for our teams to raise money for other partners that serve the fatherless, but at least mission-wise, it'll be really synced up so that people know, okay, DadAwesome will be the brand that helps accelerate. The acceleration level will still be very much front and center our other partners, but awareness and action will be under that brand. So I don't know if that adds confusion or simplifies, but that's the plan.
So are those subsidiaries of the DadAwesome brand then, and the acceleration?
So all those brands? So all of the brands under acceleration, those 17 logos and the other 30 that I didn't put on there, those would all be a part of the DadAwesome collective that there's a monetization, a way to fuel and fund the strategy of DadAwesome through those partners, through some really, they've already been offered to me as a podcast host, but it'll be 3 or 4x the impact when we build this collective. So that's next time that I sit down with you, I'll explain.
That is a lot of the people that you invited to Washington.
Yes, exactly. That's where I started. It's there's already deep trust with those. Yep. Great questions. Other questions before I give you the last slide of the night? So, because we put activation, I have to activate you guys, right? So there's a lot of font on one. Just look at the yellow. That's all that matters. Join is you guys are all invited. Jordan and I lead a weekly fitness group at 5:55 in the morning on Friday mornings. Join. Like I'm always going to be inviting people to join, right? Join by listening to the podcast. Join a team. Join the accelerator. There's always like the invitation to join, and the reason that you're here tonight is because there's some proximity to what's going on as far as joining. Lead would be, I would love to keep chatting with you guys about like pockets that you represent of even a really micro level. Hey, a 4-part lead. Like anyone who wants to lead, we have a 4-part curriculum already developed. We have events under that action level that I can't wait to get you guys mobilized as leaders. So lead. Introduce is, I'm a fan of introductions. So those could be to churches, those could be to other dads, Fatherhood Ministries you know about. Some of you guys might, likely you know of other ministries that serve dads that I don't know about. So introductions, and then fundraising introductions. That would be awesome. I have a shorter version than you guys are hearing tonight. I'm happy to do a 5-minute Zoom call or a 15-minute Zoom call. I can't wait. So anyone you want to introduce me to, we're in that mode of sharing the vision, and there's a gap between vision and what we can do and step into right now, a funding gap. So introductions are amazing. Likely we'll do another one of these gatherings in a few months, this fall or winter. There was enough people that just couldn't make this date, and so likely we'll do another one in the area before the end of the year, and that could be the introduction. Prayer team, our goal with these 5 dessert gatherings, 1 digital and then 4, is to add 20 people to our prayer team, and we already added a few in our last one. So if anyone wants to join the prayer team, a follow-up email will have the link to join, but we just send a monthly email out, and very, very grateful for our prayer team. And then the last one is support. We are always praying for more people to partner in the area of one-time or ongoing support. And this is always the question that comes up with support is, how is this ministry funded? And there are 3 income streams that has fueled DadAwesome in the we've had a bank account for 3.5 years. Even though the ministry's been 6.5 years, it was a passion project for those first 3. And these are the 3 ways that we've funded the ministry: is enterprising revenue, things like event registrations, sponsored like logos that go on our jerseys, that we have a DadAwesome store with some merch, and then the accelerator coaching we charge for. We have partner funding, so we have some other ministries that have seeded into, and then some churches, and then personal fundraising, friends, family, new partners. And that's it. I told you one more slide, and it was 2. I have spoken a lot, and I am really grateful for you guys. I mentioned a story that I didn't share. That's a dude in Columbus, Ohio, named Matt, that listened to the podcast, reached out to me through Instagram. I had one phone call with, joined the accelerator. So this is podcast level awareness to activation level. Joined the 6-week accelerator, is taking 40 dads through the exact curriculum that I took him through. So that's an example of, in the Bible it talks about you can sow seed, and some of it has a 40, is it 60, 40, 60, 100? 41. So the multiplication effect of, that's what we're praying for, is the fire starters, the guys who like it doesn't have to be times 4, it could be 4 others, right? But I just wanted to share Matt's story briefly with you guys. And there's so many more stories, but I've spoken long enough, and there's dessert to be eaten.